to help us preview the South Carolina Gamecocks. Scott Hood from GamecockCentral.com. Scott, Vince, and Mike Strange, how are you this morning, Scott?
Vince.
Hey, Scott.
Good to talk to you again. How you doing?
I'm good. Good to talk to you. We appreciate your insight as always, Scott. And I guess we'll begin with what in the world happened, especially last week. These last two games, not indicative of what we saw from South Carolina early in the year. Last week certainly was uglier. Why did you have some theories on why they played so bad in that Florida game?
Well, I think they played poorly, really, in games. I think they've experienced the perils of playing on the road in the SEC. Last two games just happened to play probably the two of the loudest environments in the SEC, if not the country, and I think they paid the price for it. Now, certainly the LSU game, they had their opportunities to win, but just couldn't take advantage. They were leading LSU in the fourth quarter in Tiger Stadium in front of 95,000 people, so they had their chance. But Connor Shaw threw the key interception, and LSU went down, kicked the field goal, and then they had the 50-yard run. And then last week, it was just a failure of the special teams guys to hang on to the ball. Florida's two of their starting drives, one started from the 1-yard line. When the return on the fumbled kickoff, and then one from the 2-yard line when Connor Shaw picked up a corner blitz, and he got ripped apart by the Florida defender and lost control of the ball. So, unfortunately, the defense played pretty well in both games, but certainly last week they got put in some really bad positions, and with 4 turnovers, it's really impossible to win in a place like Florida.
Well, Scott, I thought they also, you mentioned playing on the road, 2 tough places on the road. I think they were also playing 2 of the best defenses in the SEC. I think LSU and Florida are significantly better than, say, Georgia, who, didn't cause a whole lot of problems. So with Tennessee coming their way, they'll kind of flip the needle back the other way.
I guess we're going to find out. I think that talk to people here in Columbia, I think that they're concerned about how the USC defense is going to match up with the Tennessee defense, because certainly Tyler Bray and seems to be playing pretty decently, and so it's a couple of good wide receivers in Hunter and Patterson, and a decent running game with Neal. But certainly I think people here believe that the USC offense can get healthy against this Tennessee defense. I guess you guys have obviously followed a lot more closely than I have, but certainly I can't remember a Tennessee defense ever being ranked this low in the SEC, not only in just one category, but in all categories. And I think right now with their last in total defense and last in scoring defense, I can't remember whenever it happened to a Tennessee defense like that.
Well, Scott, I think the statistics for Tennessee are accurate and indicative of the way they're playing right now on defense for Tennessee. The offense, I think some of those numbers are deceiving. They have not been as good, especially last week. And Tyler Bray has taken a lot of criticism, and Derek Dooley even said, "Hey, if he's loose with the football, we're going to make a change." What's the quarterback status at South Carolina?
Right now, it's Connor Shaw's game. In fact, Steve Spurrier said yesterday that he's going to start. He's going to play the entire game. So do not expect Connor Shaw, if Steve Spurrier is true to his word, that Connor Shaw will get pulled from the game like he did at halftime of the Florida game. I think they want to get Connor Shaw's confidence back. And one thing, guys, they have to do, they have to get the ball back in Marcus Lattimore's hands. He's carried the ball 16 times the last 2 games, only 3 times at Florida. We asked him after the game how he felt. He said he was fine. He felt pretty good, yet he only got the ball 3 times. In my opinion, when you get a 5-star running back like a Marcus Lattimore, we got the feet in the ball 20 to 25 times a game, and for some reason they decided that midway through the third quarter, when it was 27-8, they felt that it was time to pack it in and just start getting ready for Tennessee. So I think you're probably going to see a lot more Marcus Lattimore this game than probably seen in the last couple of weeks.
How banged up are some of the Gamecocks?
A little bit. I think the question here is how does Lattimore feel like? He's been slowed a little bit by a couple injuries, and Connor Shaw's banged up a little bit, and the offensive line has been through a little bit of turmoil with some injuries. I think for the most part, I would say they're fine. Most of the major contributors seem to be okay at this point.
Kelsey Quarles back on that D line this week.
That is one of the questions that right now I'll say he's questionable. He hit the Florida game half because of the suspension for hitting the LSU player and half because of the shoulder injury. He did not practice yesterday. We talked to Brad Long, defensive line coach, and he's questionable at best. So he probably is the one guy the one starter on defense, I would say that probably at most risk to miss the game on Saturday.
We're joined by Scott Hood from GamecockCentral.com. Does a great job covering the South Carolina Gamecocks. You can find him on Twitter as well. It's at Scott Hood, HOOD 63 on Twitter. Scott, back to Marcus Lattimore. Because he didn't start the game and they didn't use him as much, did Steve Spurrier not trust the running game without Lattimore and maybe throw the football too much early in that game with Florida?
Yeah, I think that's happened the last two games. Whenever South Carolina throws the ball more than they run it in a game, really, if ever, win. And that's what's happened the last 2 weeks. Certainly it gets to the point that if it's not giving the ball to Marcus Lattimore on the ground, they're not giving it to anybody. Kenny Miles and, of course, Mike Davis, the freshman running back from Georgia who they signed last year. The last recruiting cycle, I think he's a promising running back, but certainly it seems like they trust Marcus Lattimore with the ball a lot more than other running backs. And when he's not able to go, it seems like they turn to the pass more than probably they should. So the key, I think if you look at the numbers, USC has always been a much better team, a much more successful team when they run the ball 40 times or more per game and give the ball a lot more 20 or 25 times a game and mixing some of the other guys. But they've gotten away from that the last couple of weeks.
I know Tennessee's defense has had some trouble in the middle part of the schedule and lately containing the edge in the running game. And I'm wondering about Connor Shaw. How much does he run on designed runs and how much of it's just him making a play when things break down?
I think it's about 50-50. Now, they certainly call design plays for Shaw because this is a kid with 4.5 speed, so he can get out on the edge pretty good. One thing he's very good at is third down scrambles. Typically, sometimes he'll go drop back to pass, but if he doesn't do anything pretty quick, he's gonna take off running. Sometimes Spurrier gets a little bit annoyed at that, but more often than not, he'll pick up the first down. So he's done it many times this year, and many times in his career, and he's really brought a different element to the USC offense that maybe that Stephen Garcia did not have last year during his career. Has
Jadeveon Clowney lived up or surpassed expectations for him, or was that impossible coming in?
I'll probably say it was impossible to surpass expectations because the expectations were so huge when he first got here. But I give Jadeveon Clowney a lot of credit because a lot of people put a lot of pressure on an 18-year-old kid to come in here and really become the megastar on defense right away. Right now, he's starting to live up to it. He was freshman of the year in the SEC last year, had a pretty good year, but he's still learning the defensive playbook. This year, he knows his knowledge of the defense is far superior than it was last year, and I think it's reflected in the way he's playing the game. And he's been a monster on defense, and it's really tough to believe he still has one more year to go too because he's only a true sophomore. So certainly developing at a pretty rapid rate, and I'm looking for him to have a pretty good game this week, and then really good games throughout the season here.
Scott, another area that seemingly in flux is that offensive line. I guess there were a couple new starters from the Florida game on the left side of that line. What's the status of the offensive line this week versus Tennessee?
I think they're going to go back to the typical unit. I think obviously T.J. Johnson is a rock in the middle. He started 48 straight games at center, and you got A.J. Cann and Ronald Patrick at guard. I think they'll stick with those two guys again. And of course, then on tackles, you've got right now you got Mike Matulis and Brandon Shell on the left and the right side. I think that's probably what the starting unit they'll probably go with. They also got Corey Robinson at left tackle as well too. Now they did start Kyle Harris at Florida, but I think that was more of a one-game deal. I think they'll try and send a message to a couple of guys there, and I think the message was received. So I think they're going to go back to the more experienced guys this week.
What do you expect from the South Carolina team the rest of the way?
They've got a shot to win the final 5 games of the year. It's not the most difficult schedule the rest of the way here. I know with Tennessee's defense, they got the opportunity to score some points. You got Arkansas coming in here in 2 weeks. Of course, we know about Arkansas struggles, and then they got Wofford, and then they got to go up to Clemson, the upstate. So, and then finish off with a bowl game. USC has never won 5 games in a row to finish off the year. In fact, last year they won 4 in a row. It was the only second time they ever done in school history. So, never 5 in a row. So, Steve Spurrier always talks about trying to do things for the first time, and I think there's another opportunity to do exactly that.
Is Steve Spurrier happy? Do you think he's going to continue to coach, or are we going to revisit the whether he's going to retire talk or not every year?
Yeah. No, I think the retirement talk will come up every year, but that's more from the national media perspective. every year I read articles about this year's going to be the last year for Steve Spurrier, and they're wrong. And he has a contract through 2015. I expect him to coach through 2015. He's very happy here at South Carolina, and the fact that right now they're winning, and they're able to recruit players like Lattimore and Clowney and Alshon Jeffrey and Stephon Gilmore and players of that caliber. I think even though they struggled the first few years here, they really got it going both on the recruiting and on the field. And obviously, you guys know Steve Spurrier likes to win. As long as they keep winning, I think he'll be fine. I'm thinking the coach is another 3 or 4 years here.
Scott Hood covers the South Carolina Gamecocks for GamecockCentral.com, does a fantastic job. Again, on Twitter, it's at ScottHood63. Scott, always great to visit with you. Really appreciate it. Have fun on Saturday.
Great, guys. See you on Saturday.
Thanks. That is Scott Hood from Gamecock Central joining us here on the new Sentinel Sports Page.